Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk about the Browns-Eagles matchup Sunday, as well as some of the Ohio State-Oregon matchup Saturday coming up in a little bit. But first we start with the Guardians. Guardians forced a fifth and decisive game against the Tigers in the ALDS series with a 5-4 win over the Tigers last night. Back and forth ball game. Lane Thomas, guy the Guardians traded for, top of the first, comes through with an RBI single. He's had a pretty good series at the plate. Trey Sweeney in the bottom of the second, runner on third, hits one out into left field. Quan gathers it, but it's a sac fly to tie the game up at 1. This is a really good sign for Guardians fans. Top of the fifth, Jose Ramirez turns on it, and that is a solo home run to left to give the Guardians the lead. Bottom half of the inning, though, Zach McKinstry going the other way, and he ties things up with a solo home run of his own. We go to the bottom of the sixth. Winsell Perez pinch hitting, and he comes up with a big hit. Base hit that drops into left field. That will bring a runner in to give the Tigers the 3-2 lead. David Fry pinch hitting, and he comes up with a bigger hit. This one is gone to left field, a 2-run pinch hit home run in the top of the seventh. 4-3 Guardians with the lead. Next at bat, safety squeeze by David Fry, a great move by Stephen Vogt. Jace Jung, an RBI ground out in the ninth inning to bring a runner in from third. But Emmanuel Clase holds it right there, 5-4. He strikes out Verling to end the ball game. 5-4, the Guardians win. They force a game 5 back here in Cleveland. And news today that it will be moved from an 8:08 start to a 1:08 start due to inclement weather that is expected here in town. So the Guardians will face the Tigers in an elimination game at 1:08 tomorrow. That win last night, first elimination game win for the franchise since the 1997 World Series. Let's see if they can make it 2 in a row. Stephen Vogt explained his thought process behind pinch hitting David Fry, who came up with that big 2-run homer.
The left on left versus right on right, and David has been very good versus right-handed pitching, and Bo Brisky's pitched really well against us all year, but for us in that moment, we wanted to get the matchup right on right there, and David Fry is one of the best baseball players in this league, and he's just a baseball player. You saw it tonight, pinch hit off the bench, home run.
Dream about it as a kid and think about it all the time, and in the off season and when you're working on stuff, and then it happens and it goes by real quick. I remember looking at the dugout and high-fiving Sandy, and then just black out, and then you're in the dugout cheering with the boys. It was a lot of fun. I was just trying to get a pitch to hit, and luckily kind of fought off some pitches with 2 strikes and was able to barrel something up.
Fry, another one of the guys, along with Lane Thomas and Stephen Quan, who have had really good series. All right, Fry next at bat. After that pinch hit 2-run homer, runners at first and third, and Stephen Vogt decided to play a little ball. Fry came through.
Gets a safety squeeze down, game on the line. Just can't say enough about what David has meant to us this year, and the personal history is huge. But you look at that, you can say, oh, no, he owns them or he's due. And, again, like we talked about yesterday, you have to take your shots, and fortunately one of our shots worked out today. All of our guys work on bunting. It's a tool that we need to use to tack on that extra run to add on to the lead. And for David, when I talked to him, I said, hey, do you want to do this? And he said, oh, yeah, I butted a lot in my life. I'm confident. And Rocchio, with the way Rocchio's won, swinging the bat right now, his at-bats have been phenomenal. You can't speak enough about that, but perfect jump, perfect slide, just everything went right on that play.
Vogt kind of came up to me and was like, hey, how confident are you in getting a bunt down? And I told him I wasn't a very good hitter in high school, so I'm pretty confident I had to bunt a lot. And he goes, all right, just keep an eye on Rugi for signs. And then right before I went up, and he said, go ahead and do it first pitch. And luckily got the run in.
And again, a pretty gutsy call, and you figure I like the call by Vogt because previous at bat, 2-run homer, not expecting him to lay down a bunt. He did, and they get a huge insurance run. That ends up being the difference in the game. Another good sign for the Guardians. Jose Ramirez has struggled a little bit. I think probably trying to do too much. Comes up with a big solo home run for the Guardians last night.
Jose's obviously our leader, and I don't want to take all the credit, but I did tell Hogg before he came up that he was going to hit a homer that at bat, so I will take all the credit. No, but Jose's the man, and he kind of got us going, and to see him he's not the most emotional guy, but to see him get fired up after that homer kind of got the boys going, and then getting the ball to Class A. I mean, he's done it all year. Our whole bullpen's done it all year, and they pick us up, and he was awesome.
So it sets up Game 5, another elimination game for the Guardians. It will be at 1:08. Again, game has been moved to 1:08 at Progressive Field tomorrow. Good news, the Guardians are at home. Bad news, Tigers are pitching Tarek Skubal in this 5th and decisive game. And Skubal rides 24 consecutive scoreless innings into the postseason. That's the most that a pitcher will carry into an elimination game in MLB history. So Skubal was asked about pitching in an elimination game where he knows the team that he's going against, and the team that he is going against knows him pretty well.
I think our team wouldn't want to have it any other way. You know, I think we've been playing these winner-take-all games for about a month and a half, 2 months now. So, and it's fun. You know, it's why you play the game, for moments like this and for stages like this in this setting too. So, I think our guys will respond well, and it'll be a ton of fun.
You can't trick them; they know who you are. It's just become a street fight at this point. Like, you just go at them. Your best against their best.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how I pitch anyways. So, yeah, I think that's the whole game. You know, this whole series has kind of been like that too. I think that's who this team is. I think that's who our team is too. So it sets it up to be a pretty fun game.
And again, Skubal's, he's good. He's probably the AL Cy Young Award winner, but take a look at this. He'll be pitching on 4 days rest on Saturday. On 5 days rest, like he had in Game 2, he's nearly untouchable. On 4 days rest, still very good, not quite the same guy. 4-3 record, 3.11 ERA, 11 games on 4 days rest. That's what he's going on. 5 days rest, 9-1, ERA 2.07, so a full run lower, 12 games. A.J. Hinch, on giving the ball to Tarek Skubal in a game, they just have to win.
Totally calm, no outbursts, no energy, no. I mean, he is. He'll handle it great. I mean, strike one is going to be key for him. You know, obviously, he's got a game 4 days ago that he can reflect back on how he pitched guys. I know how important every game is to him, and I know what it means to send him out to the mound for the confidence in our team. So. He's going to handle it like the pro that he is and attack the strike zone, attack the hitters. He loves competition. He's into it as much as anybody that I've ever put on the mound. And nobody better to give the ball to on the mound in this game than Tarek.
And again, it'll be interesting to see. We know from the previous couple of games that he's pitched against the Guardians, you're not going to get a lot of opportunities, so you got to take advantage of them when you do get the opportunities. One guy that has been outstanding for the Guardians at the plate, Steven Kwan. He is 8 for 16, so he's hitting .500 in the series, 4 runs scored. The success is not a surprise to the Tigers' A.J. Hinch.
Oh, man, we have not figured him out in this game or this season, you know, because he's so talented at taking what the game gives him. You know, he's impressive from the other side because, you know, he always has a plan. He executes it flawlessly. He's a tough guy to get swing and miss. He's a tough guy to keep off the base. He ignites, you know, this offense because of that bat to ball contact skills. And then he throws in plus defense, you know, in the outfield and becomes a complete player, can run. He's a winning player. You know I said that about Vierling. I've said that about a few guys, but from the other side, I really appreciate what Steven Kwan brings because of how he contributes to their big innings and their success this season.
So going against Tarek Skubal for the Guardians will again be Matthew Boyd, and Boyd was pretty darn good in Game 2. 4 2/3, no runs, 5 strikeouts. Did give up a couple of singles to Malloy. Had some base runners, always able to make the good pitch. Again, 5 strikeouts, 4 2/3. The Guardians will again need Matthew Boyd to just keep it close against Skubal. Try to get Skubal out of the game, get a couple of runs off him if you can, and then turn it over to that bullpen that's been the reason that you're where you are if you are the Guardians. Tigers manager A.J. Hinch talked about the whole atmosphere surrounding this series and playing in a Game 5 that will decide who gets to go to the American League Championship Series tomorrow afternoon.
These games are incredible because they're, every time a runner gets on base, I mean, there's a heightened awareness. Every time there's a score change, there's an emotional reaction in and around the building, depending on what happens. There's everybody's on edge. Everybody knows what's at stake. There's no secrets. It's the best brand of baseball that you can get because everybody is all in every moment, every pitch, every at bat. Any one person can be the difference in the game. And it's October. So obviously game 1 through 4 had so many incredible moments that, we will think about later, but you get to these last games, these last elimination games, the best thing you can do is enjoy it. I'm so proud of our team and the way we're handling this, the loud music, the vibe that we're bringing to tomorrow. It's a great opportunity to be great. Everybody remembers these games. And it's a great opportunity. It's not a burden. There's no stress. There's no tension on our side. And we are going to enjoy every moment of this opportunity because it's where we want to be. It's where we are, and it's where we want to be.
Again, Tigers and Guardians, 1:08. Game has been moved to 1:08 in the afternoon. Winner gets the Yankees in the American League Championship Series. Loser, season's over. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Browns. Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, Barking Browns podcast. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each, 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Browns, getting ready to head to Philadelphia to face the Eagles in, we're getting redundant, a game they really have to win. Brian Baldinger, former NFL offensive lineman, Andrew Siciliano, talked about trying to fix Deshaun Watson in this Browns offense.
If you got to fix something, it helps that maybe Njoku's back and healthy, and he's a big part of what success they had last year. Just basic routes right now. Get the ball in the hands of these guys, whether it's stick routes or stop routes or hitch routes. Just get completions and put it in the hands of these guys to go do something right now.
And they're not running the ball in first and second down. They are consistently behind the sticks. Their thirds aren't 3rd and 2s. They're 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9. Yet there have been, I'll go back to the Raider game, Baldy, opening drive of that game, 15 plays, 9.5 minutes off the clock. It was a thing of beauty. We have seen it operate, and we saw it operate in Jacksonville as well when they got back to basics, opened in jumbo sets, and ran the ball. And Deshaun opened well in that as well. You said in years past they've been running the football. It's so much empty. It's shotgun on first down. It's, hey, I get it. This is what operated in Houston well. You want him to see the field. But, the plays on which it's blocked well, he's not necessarily seeing it and getting the ball out. The plays on which, there are guys open. It just, nothing has seemed to click. Everything. In other words, guys open, protection, he sees it. Those plays where all 3 things happen, they're just not enough of them.
With that, let's welcome in Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, the Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, they need to do whatever they need to do to run the football. And the tailoring the offense to Deshaun Watson, I was all for it. I'm out of I've seen enough of it.
I'm 100% with you on that, Dave. Like you were committed to this guy, so I totally understood why you went out and did that, brought in the guys that you brought to make this offense do, look like what Watson had the most success with. It's just not happening at all. I mean, it's just so ugly right now. And we talked about this on last Friday's show, and they did in that clip as well. Just like the simple, easy yardage, they're not going out and getting it. They're not establishing the run. He's not seeing the field. So why are we in shotgun every other snap when he can't see the field in shotgun? Like, get some situations where you can have some personnel mismatches and put, some power running, some things that these guys can do. Because we saw it against Jacksonville. It's just nothing is coming easy right now. And so you need to simplify and go back to the basics of what Kevin Stefanski has done successfully, especially in Cleveland.
All right. So this is why I'm of the mindset it's time to move off of that, build the offense around Deshaun Watson. Per PFF, Watson has had 115 pass attempts from a clean pocket. We know he's been pressured. This is from a clean pocket. That's 14th among quarterbacks. These clean pocket stats rankings, 50 attempts, and there's 33 quarterbacks. He's 26th out of 33 in completion percentage, 68. 32nd in yards per attempt, 54. 29th in passer rating, 82.4. When kept clean, he's still in the bottom 5. You cannot continue to try to build an offense around that. It's not working. Time to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been kind of vocal about it, wanting Jameis Winston this week on social media. And I understand that Watson is not the only problem, but every way you cut it, he is a problem. Like, Mac highlighted it perfectly in that tweet, talking about, hey, he's actually kept clean in the top half of the league. Like, yeah, he gets pressured. I know PFF has Watson at like 17% of the pressures he's gotten this year are completely on him. So yeah, he's got pressured, but even when he's clean, he just cannot see the field. So you need to simplify things. Don't put 5 wide receivers out there. Put a couple wide receivers and some play action and just try to simplify things if you're not going to make the change. You should make the change, but I understand that they're married to this relationship, so they're trying to make it work. But if you're going to, you have to change the offense.
All right, so you kind of alluded to this. Watson has been under pressure 85 of his dropbacks through 5 games. Most in the NFL, next highest is 73. So this is from PFF. He's been sacked 26 times, also most in the NFL, next highest is 18. Gives you an idea. This is who is to blame for the pressures, according to PFF. You mentioned Watson, almost 17%. Left tackle, take your pick. That's 23.5%. Again, that's your blind side. That creates some issues anyway. Left guard, that's Bitonio's spot. Same percentage as Watson. Center, that's Posick, who's been banged up in Harris, almost 19%. Right guard, Teller and Zinter, 14%. And the right tackle, DeJuan Jones, 20%. So those numbers tell you the offensive line's been a sieve.
Yeah, it's everybody. It's right across the board there. But and you're hoping that maybe you get some guys healthy and get them back, and you're able to kind of alleviate some of those things, and maybe you can start going into some quick passes, get the ball out of Watson's hands. He's holding on to it forever, and it's making those offensive linemen who are struggling struggle even harder. I don't think DeJuan Jones is healthy at right tackle. He's losing a lot of reps out there. The offensive line just. The biggest thing is I think they just need to stay healthy, but you've got to find a way to also help your offensive line, get that ball out. Brian Baldinger said it perfectly. Get some of these short routes to let these playmakers that you have on offense get the ball in their hand and do something and try to take the pressure off of this offensive line.
All right, so you mentioned Baldinger. He was also asked, what's wrong with the Browns offense? This again from the Rich Eisen show with Andrew Siciliano filling in.
This offense is built around running the football, and obviously Nick isn't ready to go yet. They obviously losing Wyatt Teller, Ethan Posick, like that. Those are really good players. I thought over the last 4 years, especially with Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach, I thought Petonio, Pochik, and Teller were as good as anybody in this business. At just, they had rotating tackles, but interiorly, whoever was running the ball, Kareem Hunt, Nick, whoever, like they cut defenses up and chop defenses up as well as anybody. And that's just not happening right now. And so that's a big part of what made that offense successful, even when Flacco was there last year, was that interior. That's not there. And look, you look at the game tape from last week. I mean, you can only help your quarterback out so much. They're running crossers in the middle of the field against Washington last week. I mean, whether they're in man or zone, that's your read. That's where your eyes go. And Washington completely blew the coverage. And Jerry Jeudy's wide open, and he's waving at his quarterback, who isn't looking down the field, and he's reading the rush, and he sacks himself, and he gets hit hard. I don't know what he's looking at right now.
And Jacob, we've talked plenty about Watson. The beginning part of that is perhaps more concerning. I used to think this offensive line being physical, and I was concerned early in the year. Even preseason, I'm like, man, there's a lot of guys that are up there in years. I don't know what it is, but this offensive line is no longer physical. They just aren't.
Yeah, it does seem like a very passive group. They don't really seem to like Wyatt Teller, the stuff that you really enjoyed with him. And I know he's on IR right now, but you loved watching him pull and just be a mauler and knocking people over. And Posick just, it's not there, that fire from him. I know he's been a little bit banged up as well. And Botonio Father Time seems to be catching up with him a little bit after, having some back issues last year. And it's just, you just aren't, there isn't anything special about that, the interior, after it was so special for the last handful of years. And I know it kind of struggled last year, so I'm not 100% on if it's Bill Callahan leaving, that kind of thing, just because I think there was a lot of struggles last year. But for whatever reason, this group, they're not moving people in the run game consistently, and they're just not being able to pick up like the simple twists and stunts, and they're just not like communicating, I think, is one of the biggest issues. And people are then going unblocked both in the run game and the pass game, and they're just not on the same page. And as a result of the lack of physicality and lack of communication, it's one of the worst units in football after being one of the strengths for several years.
All right, this is from the Bleacher Report. One thought on every NFL team entering Week 6, and Browns. I get the feeling the Browns want to give Deshaun Watson some time to work with Nick Chubb, whose return could be imminent. Will not play this week. We'll get into that in a minute. When the struggling quarterback continues to fail to deliver under those circumstances, the organization's hands will essentially be tied. I know the team is beat up, but you'd need 6 All-Pros to make this offense look like we thought it would.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to have we just talked about the lack of physicality in the run game from that offensive line. And I know Nick Chubb erases a lot of missed assignments with his ability to cut back, and with probably the best vision in football that I've seen in forever. And what he can kind of do is really special. But, when you've got a quarterback that just cannot see the field and cannot diagnose defenses, I don't know that a running back makes that much of a difference. And I love Nick Chubb, but he's never really been that involved in the passing game. So yeah, he could take some burden off of Watson's shoulders and what he can do on the ground. But if they continue to just completely load the box because he's not getting vertical in any way, shape, or form, I'm not sure how big of a difference it would make.
Yeah, I'm with you. The offensive line is not what it has been when Nick Chubb is running effectively. All right, so we get some injury updates and some news of who's in and who's out. So Jack Conklin, David Njoku, both good to go for Sunday's game. Great news. Kevin Stefanski wouldn't say, however, if Conklin will be active and have a role on game day. Also, Michael Hall Jr. will be activated after serving his 5-game suspension. Again, more good news. Not sure how well he will do. Browns have ruled out Nick Chubb, Grant Delpit, that one's going to hurt. Ronnie Hickman, that'll hurt. Hines, Hudson, Posick. You also have Diabate, Hicks, and Hurst, as well as Ward, who are questionable. Hicks, Hurst, and Ward would help quite a bit defensively for a run defense that has definitely been ailing as of late.
Yeah, I would say one thing that kind of gets you a little bit excited is potentially the debut of Michael Hall, because even if in a season that's so far not gone the way you wanted it to, you can at least get a look at somebody that's, kind of the future, and a guy that has game-changing athleticism and pass rush from the interior. And if you got him and Hurst back, that would be really great. I mean, Michael Hall's not totally great as a run defender. It's more on the pass side where he makes his biggest impact. But getting some people back in the interior, especially if they can get Hicks, like you said, it's very important for the run defense. Really, really concerned about Hickman and Delpit not being there, because now you're really going to your bag because Juan Thornhill's still on IR. So the safety situation, and probably we see A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back for the Eagles. I'm not sure their status as of now, but if you get them back, you've got an issue with playing deep with Rodney McLeod being the only guy there. So you get a little bit of reinforcements, because I think Jack Conklin going out there, if he starts at right tackle, I think that's a massive get for the Browns. But it's just more people on the out list than returning, and it's just, you've got to continue to wonder how this happens so much in Cleveland.
Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report, the Barking Browns podcast, and I can step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention a little bit more to the Browns-Eagles matchup. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report and the Barking Browns podcast. Brian Baldinger talked about what he's going to be paying attention to in this Browns-Eagles matchup.
The one thing I'm interested in this week, though, Andrew, is Jim Schwartz is coming back to Philly.
Yep.
And he won a Super Bowl here, and he takes a lot of pride in his defense. I don't think, this is just me talking. I haven't talked to Jim this week.
We got 90 seconds.
I don't think he thinks that Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback and reads defenses well. I'm interested to see how he attacks Jalen Hurts in this game. Whether he thinks Jalen's going to read the rush, bail too quickly. Obviously, the receivers are back, I think, AJ and Devontae. Like, that makes a big difference. And he likes to get the ball to his favorite target, AJ, down the field, like he did in this game in Brazil against Green Bay that basically won the game for him. So I'm interested to see, and he's been turning it over a lot. So I'm interested to see how Jim Schwartz attacks him, because Jim does have a nice ego, healthy ego. His defense got lit up pretty good by Jaden last week in that run game.
Also very well dressed.
Yeah. So this is a good return for Jim Schwartz.
And Jacob, when you think about it, that defense, if they're going to do anything, they're going to have to carry the I can't imagine the offense is miraculously going to find a light switch.
Yeah, I mean, they're going up against another defense that's allowed 20 points a game, but they still haven't scored 20 themselves, so you're kind of concerned with that. Yeah, I mean, Jim Schwartz had some comments this week just kind of talking about, the struggles and how they still believe they can bounce back and do those sorts of things, and, him having kind of a feel for Jalen Hurts. I think that does matter. But, I think Brian Baldinger really touched on it well. Like, Jim Schwartz does have a bit of a healthy ego. He does believe in his players as in himself. And right now they've been as big of a problem as the offense, especially last week, where it's just like in these big moments, they need to carry the team, and they haven't been able to do that the way they did, last year, and bringing, setting up turnovers in short fields. And they know that's the only way, I think, is multiple turnovers is the only way the Browns come out on top.
So this is interesting as well. PFF.com with this one. Browns' run defense has regressed. I don't think you can argue that. Allowing just 0.8 yards before contact per attempt last season, second best in the league. 1.4 this season, 10th worst, so bottom third. Shift has contributed to allowing 23 runs of 10-plus yards for the Browns, second most in the NFL. And that's even more concerning because Saquon Barkley is probably running the ball better than anybody in the NFL, and he's the Eagles' main running back.
Yeah, they've really done a great job taking advantage of his skill set coming over there. I think they really figured out how to use Barkley really well. Yeah, the Browns, like, we were worried about some of these things because after Dalvin Tomlinson, the guys up the middle, they're just not very good run defenders if he's off the field. And with Jordan Hicks missing some time, we don't know if he'll be out there. He's one of their main cogs in the run defense. It's just they're getting moved off the ball, blown off the ball, even when they know it's a run play. And you just got to wonder, what can you do? You got to find a way to play with better leverage. You got to find a way to not allow these gaping holes. And you got to, the linebackers, especially Devin Bush last week, was just, his rush lane discipline was just really poor. It comes down to a lot of bad tackling, a lack of discipline and staying in their rushing lanes, and things that I think you can sit out there and be like, hey, as a coach, I can fix this. This is my job to fix these sorts of things. It's not for a lack of talent. I know they're banged up, but they still have enough talent to get the job done at linebacker and on the second level. So you're just trying to figure out, like, how do I light this spark? Because you thought they got exploited last week. Wait till Barkley gets 25, 30 carries on him.
Yeah, that's got to be a major concern if you're looking at this objectively. All right, this from CBS Sports, Week 6 bold predictions. Deshaun Watson and the Browns stun the Eagles for a shocking victory. Why? Well, Jalen Hurts leads the NFL in giveaways, 27. Since 2023, he is struggling this season. Hurts has been sacked 10 times in his last 2 games, thrown interceptions in 3 of his 4 starts in 2024. Eagles' offensive line is allowing a 45.2% QB pressure rate, second highest in the NFL, ahead of only the Patriots. So they're allowing more pressure than the Browns, which will tell you how that offensive line is struggling. All right, keys to this. If the Browns are going to get a win, and again, 2-4 sounds a whole lot better than 1-5. I will say that. What do the Browns need to do to get a win?
I think that was really highlighted it really well. Getting pressure on Jalen Hurts is where it starts. Yeah, he is turnover prone. They need to set up their offense with some short fields and give them some opportunities to put points on the board, even if it's just some field goals. We saw them last year where the defense was forcing turnovers and forcing stops, and they were winning with field goals, like with PJ Walker at quarterback. So I think just limiting the explosive plays of Philly's offense and putting them in, nice third down situations on defense to where they can force some punts and force some turnovers and put pressure on Hurts. But then on the flip side, on the offense, you just got to stay ahead of the chains, I think, is the biggest thing, because we've highlighted it where it's like they're not in 3rd and 2, they're in 3rd and 9 all the time. You can't do that. You got to play smart, fundamentally sound football, which is a lot easier said than done for this team. But if they can limit mistakes on offense and put Jalen Hurts into positions to make some mistakes like we have seen him do in the past, I think they might be able to squeak one out.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? I want to see big person. You need to be able to move people off the line. If you can't do that with the 5 guys you're going to put out there, put 6 or 7 there, because you need to. 3rd and 8 is what they've been in, and that's why their third down conversion rate is the worst in football. And you need to be 3rd and 4 to give yourself a fighting chance here.
Yeah, and I think what they did against Jacksonville early on with some of those, I mean, they had 6 and 7 linemen at time. They were using Zinter and Nick Harris, and they were using multiple extra offensive linemen out there and putting themselves in good run situations. Where it's like, yeah, they know you're going to run the ball in those situations, but if you believe in the players you got, you can move them a little bit. You can get yourself ahead of the chains, even if they can just get to 3rd and 5, if they can just get 5 yards over the first 2 plays, they'll be in such a better position than they normally are on 3rd down. Like, they've just got it to be where they've got to be consistent, and they have so many plays that are going for no yardage, and you've really got to limit that. I know it's easier said than done, but there are some plays that take advantage of dump offs for 2-3 yards. If you could do that on 1st down and get into 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, you can actually have easy answers for 1st downs instead of having to then push the ball vertically down the field, which you're struggling to do.
Jacob Roach, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report. He is also co-host of the Barking Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. Video analysis, film breakdown with Lance Reisland. Keys for the Browns to get a win against the Philadelphia Eagles. Sports4CLE will be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Time to turn our attention to some keys to beating the Eagles. Film breakdown, video analysis. Whenever we do that, we welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, as always, appreciate the time. It seems like we're saying this every week. Game the Browns really need to win. You know, again, 1-4, not what anybody signed up for. 1-5 sounds a whole lot worse than 2-4.
Well, I'll tell you what the Browns have to do, and I think Kevin Stefanski does a good job of this, both when they're winning and when they're losing. Is they gotta zero everything out and go back to work and practice, and that's really hard to do. It's hard not to listen to everybody tell you how bad you are. It's hard to listen to everybody tell you can't do things. It's hard to listen to everybody tell you your quarterback's terrible and all that kind of stuff that they're hearing right now. What they got to do is they got to just go back to work. And you know, this is one of my favorite things about my dad, and I tried to carry this over when I was coaching. It's easy to coach and it's easy to play when you're winning. Right now, you find out who your football players are. You find out who the grinders are. You find out who the loyal guys are. These are the tough times, and this is not for everybody because right now, only the guys in that building think they can win.
Yeah, let's take a look at. We got 3 keys to beating the Eagles. So number one, and this one concerns the heck out of me based on what Jaden Daniels did last week. Account for Hurts. So take us through that. What we see here.
What you're going to see here right in the middle, you're going to see JOK. And as this play goes, you're going to see over and over. This is a way that you can play zone read or quarterback. So instead of playing zone read, you know, where the end kind of feathers it, you're going to see Zadarius Smith close down hard. And then you're going to see JOK right in the middle. He's going to replace. And the term is called chase and replace. And what I like about this is that this chase and replace in the zone reading game will absolutely take Barkley out of the game. You want Hurts running the ball, not Barkley. Then, besides that, with his feet, he's got to throw from in the pocket. In fact, I think Jalen Hurts, who I really like, I think he's regressed a little bit this year. He is not throwing from the pocket very well. But what ends up happening is that if you allow his feet to get going, it kind of gains confidence. And if you can let him and Barkley get going, they build off that, right? So they're 2-2. They're coming off a bye. They're getting some guys back. But I really think if you can make Jalen Hurts throw from the pocket, make him the runner in the read game that they like to run, I think they got a really good chance to slow these guys down. They have struggled too. There's a lot of talent on the Eagles for being 2-2. And, you know, they had some good games. That last game against the Buccaneers before the bye, they got handled pretty well for 4 quarters.
Yeah, and you know, to your point about Hurts, a lot of people have kind of drawn, connected the dots. Shane Steichen, current head coach of the Colts, was a dynamite, offensive coordinator for the Eagles when they had all the success. And Hurts really hasn't been the same since he left.
There's a lot to be said about footwork within the pocket. We talked about the sacks with Deshaun Watson. So all those fundamentals that, that kind of go overlooked when you're watching a game and you're just seeing the outcome. What makes the outcome good is the process. And the process is what these head coaches and these elite guys, these elite coordinators, that's what they focus on. The game is kind of the fun part. The game is kind of the end of a 100-hour week where you've grinded, you've figured out what you want to run, you figure out what you're going to do. And a lot of coordinators, they are tied in very, very well with their quarterbacks. And I think that's what Hurts had with Steichen, is the ability to have input. I'm not saying he doesn't have that now, but the connection he had, the confidence he plays with, the ability to throw the ball, it's not the same as it was. This is not the same team that, I got to watch a couple years ago in joint practices. That team was ridiculously talented and played at a high level and played for each other. They're not doing that right now.
All right, point two, motion for matchups on the safeties. Take us through what you mean by that, what you see here.
So you're going to see an out motion here by Godwin, and then you're going to see Evans run the corner route. Now, Baker does a good job of setting the protection, but what you like here, and the same thing here, so you're going to get motion outside, and what the Browns need to do is they need to get those safeties, Blankenship and Gardner Johnson. They need to get those guys isolated in coverage. They're very good players. They're very physical players, but they're not great in coverage. So what you see by this motion by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that these simple motions get the matchups they want on Mike Evans. This one, you get Evans on Blankenship on an easy out route. It's hard to cover. And then this out motion, you're going to see the Eagles bump out, and that puts Gardner Johnson on Evans, which is a mismatch at 5'11", down in the red zone. So the Browns have to, Stefanski has to get back to what he does, which is find these matchups, whatever personnel grips he wants to use, whatever that is, but it's still about finding matchups that you can dominate. And I really think the Browns can really handle these safeties in the pass game. Now, as you look at this, you're going to see one thing that the Browns aren't doing right now. You're going to see outstanding pass protection for Baker Mayfield. And that's what the Browns got to work on, and I know they are, but those guys are big and heavy inside. So, again, I think they need to find matchups. I think those safeties, Gardner Johnson and Blankenship, are the guys they got to attack. And you can see how the Buccaneers here got the matchups they wanted by using simple motion.
All right, so the third and final point, three keys to beat the Eagles Sunday. Attack with speed on the guard centers. They struggle with lateral quickness. And remember, Jason Kelce retired, so there's a new center in there as well.
Well, you're going to see Dickerson. You're going to see the first play here. You're going to see Vita Vea from Buccaneers. He just beats Becton. Now, Becton's a guy when he's with the Jets, he has always struggled with lateral quickness. Then the next play, you're going to see Vita beats a center who's Landon Dickerson, who plays both guard and center. So these guards and centers, especially Dickerson and Becton, you're talking about guys who are 6'6" and 6'7", 330 pounds. They do a fairly nice job in the run game, but they struggle in pass protection. That's why Becton got moved to guard. Remember, those tackles who are athletic, if they get moved to guard, that means they're struggling with the speed outside of those elite pass rushers. The Browns have to get Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith. They have to get those guys down inside, and they got to beat these guys, especially on passing situations. These guys do not move well laterally. They get beat consistently in pass protection. That's why you got to win first down, crowd the line of scrimmage, so you can get them in passing situations. These guys struggle in passing situations, but they are monsters, so they don't have a lot of third down situations if they can get the run game going. So I think you can attack those guards, put those big DNs, Z and Miles, put those guys down inside and let them dominate these guards who are slow of foot.
So what do you do with Hurts if you're Jim Schwartz defensively? That again, we saw Jaden Daniels, mobile quarterback problem. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem to like to run as much as he did the first couple of years. He was banged up last year. How do you make sure he doesn't wreck the game, if you will?
Well, it's a simple solution, not hard but very hard to execute, right? So you got to keep him inside the pocket. That's the first thing. He does not throw well in the pocket. If he beats you from the pocket, then he beats you from the pocket. But right now, he's really good at making plays, extending plays. His feet have become more of extending the play than they are running, but they will run some zone read. They'll run some zone bluff where they'll sneak that guy out the back door in the flat. So they'll do some of the movement game with him. He does not run as well. But I will tell you one thing. He's not real accurate right now from the pocket. So if I'm the Browns, I make sure that I rush A and B gap, and I make sure those outside rushers do not let him break contain. If you think about the big play early in the game last week, the Browns brought a six-man pressure and Delpit missed the tackle. Then you get a big play downfield because those DBs have to cover a long time. You got to keep him in the pocket. You got to make him beat you from the pocket, throwing the football. You got to win on first down, and then you got to beat those guards in second and third long situations with pass rush.
All right, I'm going to flip sides of the ball and ask you, how do you get the run game going? Again, it was the only word I have for it is disappointing. Their run game has been disappointing, being the Browns.
Well, I think that's a kind word for it, and I have some other terms that you could use for it, but obviously we won't use those here. But what they have to do is, I believe they have to go back to what Stefanski knows, which is gap scheme. Now, I'm biased because I'm a gap scheme guy myself, but what the gap scheme does is allows you to be a little bit more free. There aren't as many rules. There's not as much thinking up front. You have great angles. You can man block. You can double team, but there's just not as much thinking. So I think, if you look at their best runs over the last 2 weeks, it's been the pin and pull, a couple last week, and then the counter was their long run the week before. Now, that being said, whether they run counter, boot, whatever, pass, run, they have got to get more physical. So whatever run scheme it is, it doesn't work unless you physically move people against their will, which they've done for a couple years now. They're not doing that. So I prefer they go to the gap scheme. If they stay with just zone, then they got to get some movement on those double teams in zone and create some lanes for those running backs.
Yeah, you said what I was thinking. They have that offensive line, which mauled people, for lack of a better term. They just haven't been physical this year. I'm not sure I know they're beat up, but still.
Well, you talk about, and I don't think, Dickerson's taking a lot of heat, and it's not fair when you follow a guy like Callahan. But I will tell you one thing about Callahan that I always loved. And I got an opportunity to watch him every single day for the first 20 to 30 minutes. And what I love about Callahan is his why. And I've said that before on this show. The guys knew where they're going. And I'm not sure that they always know where they're going now or always know what their rules are. Callahan was also not really nice to play for. He didn't care who you were, how many all-pros you had. He was in your face, old school. And sometimes those lines that are like that is because they have a coach who doesn't care who you are. You're going to be physical regardless. And it was hard to play for Callahan because of how he demanded things. I think they got to get back to being a little bit more nasty in practice, because regardless of the scheme, if you're not physical up front, you're going to lose.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Always really good film analysis and video breakdown. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby tins. $10 each, 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Also, we'll get into a little bit of college football coming up this weekend. But first, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I'm very interested to see where DePodesta aligns with the organization. He's the king of analytics. And what doesn't make sense to me is, why did they get Watson in the first place from an analytics standpoint and a salary cap standpoint, number one? And number two, does he have a say in this? I know they talk about alignment, and I know they talk about how Stefanski, Barry, and Haslam are all aligned. Where does DePodesta fall in the mix here? Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Dalton Wasserman from PFF, data analyst and co-host of the PFF College Football Show. So, Dalton, DePodesta, famous for Moneyball, all that stuff. He is an analytics guy who kind of puts a structure in, and we don't know the role, the exact role he plays by design. The front office doesn't, they don't want you to know how they're making the sausage. But I think people that are so, concerned about analytics are data that goes behind why you are making, $230 million decisions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is. And honestly, the biggest thing about analytics and where it helps the most is helping your team on the margins, right? Those marginal things that win football games. The thing, look, if there's an analytics argument to getting Deshaun Watson. It's the fact that in Houston, he was a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the NFL. There wasn't any question about that. The problem was the off-field issues and the amount of time off, right? Not playing for 2 years and how much that would affect him. And they've seen the worst case scenario on that. And look, analytics really don't matter as much if your quarterback is just not good, right? It's the idea that in stable situations, there is a floor where those things just aren't going to work, right? And I know there's certain teams that can coach their way and they can analytics their way above their talent level a little bit. But right now, if you have a guy playing like a backup caliber football, it really doesn't matter because whatever you do on the margins doesn't matter because the foundation of your team is a mess. So there's certainly, I understood the merit of getting Deshaun Watson from a talent standpoint at the time. The contract, the baseball style guaranteed contract, made a little bit less sense because there was the risk that this could happen. This was a high risk and possibly high reward move that really hasn't worked. So I don't think DePodesta had the wrong idea necessarily in what he was trying to do because the Browns are a franchise that's never really had a quarterback of that caliber. It's just it's the worst case scenario that could have possibly happened. And that high risk scenario is exactly what's played out the last couple of years.
Yeah, and we've heard the reason they structured the contract that way was Watson wasn't coming here. So in order to convince him to come here, you did that with the guarantee, and now you know there's the old saying, some of the best deals you make are the ones that you don't make, and it's looking like that might be the case here. This is key insights from PFF for every Week 6 matchup, and we're going to stay on the Deshaun Watson train. 3.09 seconds average time to throw, tied for the 3rd slowest in the NFL. Tendency to hold on to the ball has made him a target for opposing defenses, has absorbed 32 combined sacks and hits on dropbacks lasting over 3 seconds. That's 14 more than any other quarterback. Not processing the field, however you want to describe it. Either not seeing the field, not processing what's going on, or trying to make too big of a play. That's got to stop.
Yeah, I agree. And look, he's always been, before now, like in Houston or at Clemson, he's always been capable of holding the ball and creating plays on the move, right? He was such a special athlete when he was younger, but right now I don't see a guy who's a special athlete. He might be decent, but he can't create and improvise like he used to, right? And behind this pass protection and a very mediocre group of receivers, and even just himself, his own physical talent, he can't hold the football the way he used to, right? I think it's a similar issue that Russell Wilson's got into in his old age, is that, you know, when you lose a step, those creative plays, all of those amazing plays that come on the run or out of the pocket, they just don't come as often, right? They're much fewer and further between. And there's been flashes. There's been a couple of games where Watson's played well under pressure, but I would be more discouraged by what he's done within structure, within a clean pocket, because it's very below average. And he just hasn't shown that he's willing to make that adjustment, right? I understand, you know, we can all look back at the Texans film and go, wow, what a great playmaker he was. But if you lose a step and you miss 2 years of football, he can't do the things athletically that he used to be able to do for various reasons, on top of the injuries that he's had in recent years. So I think you're getting a guy who's still trying to create out of the pocket on the move, and he just can't do it as well as he used to.
Yeah, that half step is the difference between getting by the defender and buying yourself the ability to throw it and getting tackled. And right now, he's getting tackled. I'm with you. This is PFF matchups and storylines to watch. Storyline of the game, Browns offensive struggles in October. Finding offensive production been an uphill battle for Cleveland. The issues ranging from poor pass protection, inconsistent quarterback play, resulting in the lowest EPA per play in the NFL through 5 weeks. Last week's problems were particularly alarming given Washington's lapses on defense. Browns totaled just 207 total net yards. When I look at it, the problem is they're averaging 3rd and 8. And if you are 3rd and 8 in the NFL, you're going to get the kind of offense that we've seen the first 5 weeks in Cleveland.
Totally agree, and they need to get in better situations, and this is a week where they really need to run the football, because the Eagles, for us, are the 5th worst run D grade in football right now. The front seven struggle. Jalen Carter, even the superstar you just mentioned, he's been great in the pass rush, but not so great in run defense. The Eagles are very thin at linebacker. the Browns this week, if they have any chance to win this game, they have to find a way to run the ball between the tackles, milk the clock, make this a slow down, drag it out game, right? And this is the problem, is the Browns, without Nick Chubb and with all the offensive line injuries, they've been struggling to run the football too and put themselves in good situations. So this is a week where if they find a way to run the football, they can give themselves a chance. Take the game out of Watson's hands. You just mentioned it. Get out of 3rd and 8. Get into 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Pick up first downs a little earlier. Find those explosive runs somewhere with Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman, and then you have a shot, because this Eagles run defense has really struggled all season. And you know, with their problems at linebacker and some of the lack of depth and some guys not playing great on the inside, there's an opportunity here, but the Browns have to be able to take advantage of it. If they don't run the ball in this game, they've got no shot.
Yeah, and you know what's concerning? That offensive line that was ranked so high, they're just not as physical as they've been in the past. You're not. That's when I watch it. It's like, man, they're not moving people off the line of scrimmage at all.
Yeah, I agree. And look, it's not a young offensive line either. And this is what would start to concern me, is there's a lot of veteran players up front getting a little older. And look, they've been good for a long time. And we've seen through the injuries, it's been a problem of attrition and then performance. And honestly, it's very hard as an offensive line to function in the run game when you don't have an explosive passing game at all. It's the other problem, is you got teams stacking the box, they're running into heavy boxes, and then in the run game in total, you don't have a Nick Chubb who is so much better at creating for himself than guys like Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman either. So it's very much a combination of those two things that's causing problems. But up front, I would start to worry that this veteran offensive line is starting to age a little bit.
All right, matchup to watch. This also from PFF. Eagles right tackle Lane Johnson versus Browns edge rusher Zadarius Smith. After missing week 4, Johnson returns the lineup before going down. Veteran tackle had put together a 100.0 pass block efficiency rating and a 100% pass pro with that rate, having allowed no pressures across 87 sets in passing. Smith currently stands as the team's second leading pressure generator, 9 and sacks recorded with 3. That defense has been a little bit of a disappointment as well. Just giving up big plays, and they're getting gashed in the run game. So now Saquon Barkley, and he's been as good as anybody.
Yeah, no, he has. And look, I think there's 2 prime matchups out there at offensive tackle. When you talk about Smith against Johnson, and Lane Johnson, I think, is a future Hall of Famer at right tackle. And on the other side, even with Myles Garrett and Jordan Mailata, who's very good in his own right. But they need somebody other than Garrett to step up, because pretty much him and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah are the only guys really stepping up on a prime level for the Browns right now. And you look at Myles Garrett has 23 pressures this season. Nobody else has 10. They need help on the inside. Against 2 weeks ago against the Raiders, Garrett had 5 pressures and the rest of the team had 5 pressures. This defense cannot just be Myles Garrett, and we know he's playing through injuries as well. It can't just be Myles Garrett and then everybody else struggling, right? So Zadarius Smith is a huge key, like you mentioned, in the run and pass games on that other side, because the Eagles, this may be the best pair of offensive tackles in the league. Mailata and Johnson are great players, and you have to get to Hurts. Look, Hurts has been forcing the ball. He's been committing turnover-worthy plays. He's got 11 in 4 games. But if you leave him back there clean, and now I believe A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are coming back, he can still make the throws. We know what Jalen Hurts is capable of. Garrett and Smith beating these 2 primetime tackles for the Eagles are going to be a huge key to their success.
All right, let's turn our attention to the college games. Some big college games on tap this weekend as well. Headlined Ohio State, Oregon, 2-3 in the country. What do you see from this one? And a lot of Buckeye fans in this area, what do they need to do and be aware of if they're going to get a win in this one?
Well, it's the game of the year in the Big Ten. These have long been thought to be the 2 best teams, and it's a big road trip for Ohio State, obviously, out to Autzen Stadium in Eugene. But the big thing for Ohio State is to continue playing as physically as they've played. They've got arguably the best run game in the country right now. Chip Kelly, of course, calling plays. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson in the backfield. They're monsters. And Ohio State's offensive line really has a chance to dominate against Oregon's defensive line. Ohio State's offensive line is 13th in run blocking grade right now in the country. Oregon's defensive line is 95th in run defense grade. That is the matchup. If Chip Kelly can find a way to continue to just run the ball, right down the pipe on Oregon. Oregon's been better in pass defense, better in the pass rush, better in coverage, but the run D has kind of shown cracks in the armor even when they've played lesser competition. And obviously it's a little tilted because they had to play Boise State and Ashton Jeanty earlier in the year, but look for Ohio State to be physical up front in the run game. And the same thing holds on defense. Look, Oregon's offensive line has not been great this year, and Ohio State has one of the 2 or 3 best D lines in the country with Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, JT Tuimoloau. It's going to be a battle in the trenches. If Ohio State wins this game in the trenches, which I do think they have an advantage on both sides of the ball there, that's where they're going to want to win.
Oregon, what do they need to be? What does Ohio State need to be concerned with the Ducks offense, especially?
They have balance, and Dylan Gabriel gets rid of the ball very, very quickly. So I think what you're going to see where Oregon has struggled is creating explosive plays down the field, right? Gabriel's been really good within this like 15-yard bubble, making a lot of shorter throws to Tej Johnson and Evan Stewart and even a Trayshawn Holden. But it's been very workmanlike more so, and we're used to seeing Oregon create more explosive plays. What you don't want if you're Ohio State, you don't want this to be the week that Oregon finds a deep ball, because that's the one thing. It's deep ball, and Oregon they kind of struggle to finish drives, right? And so either whether it be long touchdowns or even in the red zone, Oregon isn't. It might seem weird because they're still high scoring and they've scored 30 plus on I think every team they've played, but it's not been as easy as it usually is, or it was the last 2 years for Oregon. So I think the first thing for me, especially early in the game, I'm curious if Oregon's going to take shots downfield because they really need it. If you're Ohio State in the secondary, you need to be very wary of not giving up an early big play that could turn the game around.
All right, Texas, Oklahoma, another big one. What do you see from that?
On paper, this should go Texas's way, honestly. Oklahoma's struggled on offense all year. Just came out that their best wide receiver, Deion Burks, is likely out for this game. They've got a true freshman starting at quarterback. And this game is really about Texas needing to assert their dominance and the return of Quinn Ewers, right? They're getting Quinn Ewers back after a couple games out with injury. We saw flashes of Arch Manning, but this is Quinn Ewers' team. He took him to the playoffs last year, lost to Oklahoma last year due to turnovers. Oklahoma's defense is a real problem, but what this should be is a statement game for Texas. Ewers is back. The secondary is playing better than it did at any point last year. And Oklahoma's offense is really nothing they should be afraid of, especially without Deion Burks. I expect Texas to win big and win really on both sides of the ball.
All right, before I let you go, we've become interested in college quarterbacks here in Cleveland. Who are some guys that we should pay attention to that you think could have some early success in the NFL from the collegiate ranks at quarterback?
There's certainly a handful, and I think a lot of it's going to come down to what style of guy that you want, right? I personally believe the best quarterback in the country is Shedeur Sanders out there at Colorado. I think he reads defenses at an NFL level. He's super accurate. He can improvise a little bit. He's gutsy. He's behind not the best offensive line, and he continues to make big plays under pressure. Shedeur Sanders is one. Cam Ward down at Miami is getting a lot of buzz as kind of this gutsy gunslinger who's just makes spectacular plays, and he's bringing Miami back on big comebacks. He's a guy with a lot of swagger and a lot of talent. Jalen Milroe down at Alabama is an athletic freak. We saw what he did against Georgia, beating them, even though Georgia almost came back. And every single week, he's been great this year. And then I think you still can't take Carson Beck out of the equation for Georgia. Look, he's not as flashy as some of those other guys, but he's accurate. He's smart. He gets rid of the ball quickly. And I think he's just not helped as much this year by Georgia's weapons. But I think Carson Beck is still an NFL passer to look for. And he's a guy who at least brings you stability, right, if you have the right pieces around him.
Dalton Wasserman from PFF, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Dalton.
Appreciate you as always, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Dalton Wasserman, make sure you check him out. PFF data analyst. He is the co-host of the PFF College Football Show. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.